Across Northern Ireland and Scotland, another clear and cold night, so we're likely to see a frost again in similar areas to where we saw this morning by Saturday morning. But there will be a lot of sunshine around once again across Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland, parts of Northern England as well. The best of the sunshine will be in the morning on Saturday. The cloud will bubble up just as it has done today, and there is a risk of a few showers breaking out here and there, particularly at the coasts. For parts of Wales and central areas, it'll be quite cloudy and a cold feeling day. And into the southeast, we start to see some showery outbreaks of rain by the afternoon, and it will start to feel a bit warmer. Now, those showery outbreaks of rain become a large swathe of rain for Sunday, so more areas are going to see a wetter day on Sunday, particularly across eastern areas and across southern areas of England. Now, that rain will move out into the North Sea through Monday, and it's going to turn considerably milder with highs of 19 degrees on Tuesday.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. In Hertfordshire, the anti-clockwise M25, there's a lane closed and delays. Follows a breakdown between junction 25 at Enfield and 24 at Potters Bar. Also anti-clockwise as a lane closed and delays after an accident between junction 28 at Brentwood and 27 at the M11. Northbound M11, though, is closed at the moment. Long delays due to recovery work after an earlier overturned lorry just near to the M25. In Bedfordshire, the southbound M1 has two lanes closed and delays after an accident between junction 12 at Flitwick and 11A at Dunstable. Staffordshire, the southbound M6 looking busy after an earlier breakdown between junction 10A at the M54 and junction 10 at Wolverhampton at Grange Mill. The A50-12 in Derbyshire currently closed after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday, the 2nd of May,
The people decide.
as the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
With the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday, the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News. 2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock and I'm Michelle Dewberry. We start this programme with breaking news from Buckingham Palace. Let's cross live to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker.
Michelle, thank you. We have just received an important statement from Buckingham Palace. And it's good news. His Majesty the King is to return to public duties after the positive effects of his cancer treatment. The statement reads, His Majesty the King will shortly return to public-facing duties after a period of treatment and recuperation following his recent cancer diagnosis. To help mark this milestone, the King and Queen will make a joint visit to a cancer treatment centre next Tuesday, where they will meet medical specialists and patients. This visit will be the first in a number of external engagements His Majesty will undertake in the weeks ahead. In addition, the King and Queen will host Their Majesties the Emperor and Empress of Japan for a state visit in June at the request of His Majesty's government. As the first anniversary of the coronation approaches, Their Majesties remain deeply grateful for the many kindnesses and good wishes they have received from around the world throughout the joys and challenges of the past year. That statement's coming through from Buckingham Palace in the last few moments. Accompanying that is a new photograph of the King and Queen. It was taken at Buckingham Palace in the garden on the morning of the 10th of April, the day after Their Majesty's 19th wedding anniversary. It's a new image to mark the anniversary of the coronation by photographer Millie Pilkington. Her Majesty the Queen there wearing a indigo day dress with velvet detailed by Fiona Clare. Clearly, this is very positive news, Michelle. I think it's going to be a boost for the monarchy. It's been a terrible few months, really, with both the King and the Princess of Wales's cancer diagnosis. But a note of caution here. The King has not been cured of cancer. He is still very much undergoing cancer treatment, according to royal sources. But the King is clearly keen to resume to public duties here. Peter Phillips, a few weeks ago, his nephew, said that the King was incredibly frustrated of how long his cancer treatment and recovery was taking. But a Buckingham Palace spokesperson says that doctors are sufficiently pleased with his progress, and that is why they've released a statement today.
See, there you go, everybody. People often get in touch and say, why is the world so full of doom and gloom? So this is a really positive step forward, and it ends in lots of ways, lots of speculation that, of course, has been running rife. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me to look at this news, we've got the Professor of Politics at the University of Kent, Matt Goodwin, and the broadcast journalist, Judita De Silva. Good evening to both of you. Very, very keen I am to bring you into the conversation tonight. What's your reaction to this breaking news from Buckingham Palace tonight? You can get in touch with me all the usual ways. You can email me gbviews@gbnews.com, or, of course, you can go to our website, and on that front page there, you will see on the top left-hand side your say. You can get involved there as well and talk to me and each other directly. And, of course, you can tweet or X me. Cameron Walker, if you will, if people are just tuning in, of course, this is great news tonight. Our King Charles is going to return to public duty. In fact, actually, let me get a comment from you two first, and Cameron in a second will just bring us up to speed with some of the background. Matt, your thoughts?
Well, it's great news, isn't it? It's the news the nation has been hoping to hear. And what struck me about that statement, Michelle, is that the very first thing the King is going to do is give back to the country, to go and visit a cancer ward, to go and visit specialists and patients. And I think, again, you know, he sets a remarkable role model. You know, the first thing is to focus his mind on public duty and commitment to the public square. I think that's a remarkable and a deeply impressive reaction to his current predicament.
Judita?
I think the first thing that struck me is that I just thought to myself, all of this is no one's business. It should be his private ordeal to go through with family. But then you kind of remember that as the royal family, they do owe the country, like I've said before, public service, but not personal information. But nature abhors a vacuum. So having nothing there would only lead to speculation, which could then turn toxic. So now I was kind of now appreciating on a different level the weight of the position he holds, that something this personal to a certain point has to be made public in order to maintain a status quo for both his family and the country.
Yeah, and of course there's been a huge uptake now in the amount of people that are actually going for checks and all the rest of it, because they themselves have perhaps noticed some symptoms, maybe they'd turn a blind eye or something. And then this news, not just of King Charles, of course, but of the Princess of Wales as well, about her cancer diagnosis. They have spared people, and we know this because of data we've been receiving about the amount, the surge of people getting checks. But Cameron, back to you, because just, if you will, take people back, bring everyone up to speed with the background of this.
Yeah, it's been a busy few months, hasn't it? So it was the 17th of January that Buckingham Palace announced announced that the King would be having treatments for a benign enlarged prostate, and he would be admitted into hospital a few days later. It was on the 26th of January that the King, alongside the Queen, who was with him when they went into hospital, was admitted into the London clinic in the capital here for treatment. He was discharged the following Monday on the 29th of January. But then a week later, on the 5th of February, news that shocked the world was that the King had been diagnosed with a separate form of cancer, so not prostate cancer, but another undisclosed form of cancer. And that's when Buckingham Palace said he would stop public duties and he would be having outpatient treatment in hospital for that cancer diagnosis. And then we saw him kind of sporadically behind the scenes. We got a smattering of photographs from Buckingham Palace of him maybe meeting the Prime Minister, for example, or an ambassador. And then on Easter Sunday, we saw him for the first time since that cancer diagnosis, greeting members of the public outside St George's Chapel in Windsor, which was a little bit of a surprise, I think, to many of us royal watchers and correspondents, because we've been told repeatedly that the King had to avoid large crowds, and we knew that the St George's Chapel service on Easter Sunday was scaled back partly because of the King's cancer diagnosis. And yes, it was a very positive sign that he was greeting the public. And then, of course, we saw him on Sunday driving his wife, the Queen, to Crathy Kirk Church, even in Balmoral. He was pictured there. Again, another sign he is doing well. And then, of course, we get this statement this evening saying he's returning to public duties.
Indeed, I'm very keen to bring you guys in at home tonight, because you never know, King Charles might be watching Dewbs and Co, and I'm sure your well wishes will go far. Josh says, great news, God save the King. James says, I'm really pleased. This seems like some good news. Maggie says, yes, very welcome, good news. Welcome back, our King. Great news, says Alan. God bless the King. And David says, this is fantastic news from Buckingham Palace. It really is nice to get good news in the midst of all the doom and gloom that seems to exist everywhere just now. Well, I'm joined live by the former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole. Good evening to you, Michael. Your reaction to this news tonight?
Good evening, Michelle. It is great news, as Cameron says. And that picture is great, isn't it? Them laughing on the first day of... Can you not hear me?
I can now. Sorry, Michael.
OK. Michelle, I was just saying it's a great picture. Them laughing on the first day of 20th year of their marriage. I was there on a freezing cold day, even colder than when they married in 2005. Now, this good news today means that besides that excellent visit to the cancer centre, he will be able to attend and preside and take the salute at the Trooping of the Colour. Then later in June, there's Royal Ascot. It's a good job he's going there because he owns the racecourse. And then there are usually 3 garden parties, either at Windsor or Buckingham Palace during the summer. And the great autumn ahead is state visits to Australia and New Zealand, and then the CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa. And if they're very lucky, and I would advise them maybe they could do it, on November the 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, they run the Melbourne Cup in Australia. Now, that is the greatest day of Australian social and sporting life. And if they can be there, and I'm sure Queen Camilla would love it, I think that would go down extraordinarily well with the Australians. So this is a day of quiet rejoicing that the King is back where he should be, leading the country. And one thing I can say for sure, and I started reporting on him in October 1967, that's 56 years ago when he started at Trinity College, Cambridge. I have never, Michelle, seen him look so happy. It's so extraordinary. He's got cancer, but when he came out of Windsor Castle at Easter and met that crowd there, he looked relaxed, he looked happy, he looked content, he looked a man within himself and very, very, very much at ease with the life he's had. That's when he came out of the hospital, of course, the London clinic, and we didn't know quite, and we still do not know the actual nature of the cancer, apart from the fact that it's not prostate cancer.
Yeah, indeed. And actually, one of my panellists was just there. We're talking about whether or not the royals should be as open about their health matters as what they currently are being. Do you think that's the right approach?
I think they've got it about right. I think when they did, at our urging, come forward with some of the facts, I think that was only right and proper. But even if we knew the nature, the exact nature, Michelle, we would never say so. It would have to be left to Buckingham Palace to announce that sort of detail. Of course he's the head of state. Of course he's a public personality. He's a world figure. But he's entitled to his privacy, and the way that he wants to announce it is the way that it should be announced. And I'm sure in due course, as he feels comfortable with it, and as the treatment progresses, and it sounds as if it's progressing well, I'm sure he will take that on advisement. I mean, he was surprised, agreeably surprised, by the terrific reaction when he had made this announcement of cancer, how it stimulated the interest in the various cancer charities and got people checking themselves up. All of this is a very good thing. It's what a leader of a country should do, and he's doing it supremely well.
And of course, is not the only member of the royal family that's battling with cancer at the moment. Of course, we do have Princess Catherine as well, the Princess of Wales. She still undergoing treatment, we believe.
Yeah, look, there we see her in earlier times, and let us hope she comes back to that. You know, we couldn't have a better Princess of Wales. Of course, she had Easter with the family up at Anma Hall. Her husband was there. He's gone back to public life. She's undergoing treatment. She's told the children that, you know, she'll get over it. And my goodness, don't we hope that she will. And she'll get back to full fitness and very promptly, too. She's a great asset to this country, and the king absolutely adores her. He's made her a companion of honor. That's a rare honor. No other member of the royal family has ever been made a companion of honor by the monarch at the time. So that is a precedent setting, and it shows the high regard he holds her in, because she's done a great job and she's done things that perhaps nobody else could do, and has facing up extremely bravely. I'm sure everybody in the studio and around the world would agree. The way she wrote her statement, the way she delivered it, the way she's faced up to something that somebody at her age, 42, shouldn't be facing. But she is, and she's taking it on board. And for the sake of her children, she's being extraordinarily brave and courageous. And of course, we all wish her well.
We certainly do, and on that note, we'll end it there. But for now, thank you very much. That's Michael Cole there, the former BBC royal correspondent. I want to pick up there, Cameron, because Michael Cole there was looking ahead to future royal engagements, and actually it's not necessarily been confirmed yet which engagements. So we're just talking there about Trooping of the Colour, etc. Those details haven't yet been confirmed.
Yeah, so I understand it's not going to be a full diary of summer engagements for the King, but he will be doing a lot more than he would have done if he was still receiving pretty strong cancer treatment. So a Buckingham Palace spokesperson tells me that planning is continuing for him to attend events such as his birthday parade, Trooping the Colour, the D-Day commemorations in France, of course, 80 years since D-Day this year. Of course, we've got Buckingham Palace garden parties, as well as the one up in Edinburgh as well, Royal Ascot, and the widely reported tour to Australia and New Zealand following, as Michael was saying, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa. That is planned for the autumn, or is still in the plans. No, it is still being planned, but nothing is being confirmed. I'm told that all future engagements do remain subject to doctors' advice and doctors' orders, and appropriate adjustments perhaps will be made depending on the King's health at the time. But planning is still very much continuing, and I think we should remain hopeful that the King will be able to attend at least some of them. I should just say also the Prime Minister has tweeted in the last few minutes saying brilliant news to end the week.
It is, actually. It does feel like a nice, positive boost for the nation. Some good vibes out there. And, of course, many of you in your own families and perhaps in your own lives as well will be touched by cancer as well. So hearing positive stories about people responding well and positively to treatment, of course, is always inspiring as well. One of my viewers, Sylvia, says it's absolutely fantastic news that King Charles feels well enough to carry out some public public duties. Long live the King. And Karen says, wow, I've got to say, Michelle, I almost stopped breathing for a second when I saw it pop up, but then I heard the good news about the King, and I must admit, I burst into tears. She says, I confess, that reaction took me by surprise. A little bit later on in the programme, we'll get into the details, actually, of the reaction. I know you've done some polling on this, Matt, and we'll revisit this, we'll visit it shortly within this programme. But for now, this sentiment of good news, it is coming through thick and fast on the inbox, and it's what people needed.
I think that's right. I think, you know, the news cycle generally is quite gloomy, quite pessimistic, and I think people want to be reminded about some of the good stuff that's happening. And I think you've just made a really important point, Michelle. This isn't just about, you know, everybody in the country. This is also about everybody struggling with cancer and their families. And the messaging that's come out of the royal family, both through the princess's remarkable statement when she revealed that she was dealing with cancer, but also the King and the way that they both really carried themselves in public during this ordeal, I think will be really inspirational for a lot of people. And that is ultimately, you know, one of the key jobs of the royal family, the monarchy, is to bring us together during moments of crisis. And for many families, cancer is exactly that. It's a serious, sustained crisis. And many will be taking strength from this event and also just watching, I think, Charles and Catherine go through this ordeal.
Indeed. Marion, one of my viewers, says, great news. My prayers for King Charles have been answered. She says she's been really desperately hoping to hear this news. She said he, in her experience, is a great, warm person. She says she met him 42 years ago when he opened the, I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the Culloden Visitor Centre near Inverness. She says, God save our King, and here's praying that we manage to get some more great news for Princess Catherine. I mean, this sentiment, Judita, of positivity and something that people can unite around and go into their weekends. Yes, it's not directly related to them or their family, but I do think a lot of people, certainly what I'm reading in the inbox, they are feeling inspired and hopeful and positive this evening because of this.
Yeah, I think it works on multiple levels because the royal family, let's face it, has been pretty much embattled for the last couple of years. And to see them go through something that, in an ironic way, even though many people say they're out of touch, like you said, cancer is a great leveler. It doesn't discriminate. And so it's humanized them in a way, and they've become, between Charles and Catherine, they've become a kind of talisman for what is the cancer journey, though for each person it's individual. That's why this kind of outburst of emotion is understandable, because you're getting someone with the eyes of the world on them, showing the humanity of going through personal struggle, and on top of that, putting personal duty above that struggle. So it's something to be commended. So in a very, very cynical way, it's fantastic PR for the royal family that suffered a lot of negativity in recent times.
And just briefly on that, Michelle, the other thing that strikes me, just looking at the photos that have been released, you know, it's very clear that the King wants the Queen to be very prominent, very front and centre in this battle that he's having with cancer. And it reminds us that she's also stepped up in a massive way over the last few weeks and months to take on what the statement from the palace today describes as a full programme of activity. And I think this is also as much about partnership, obligation, responsibility, as it is about his individual journey with cancer and the battle there that's involved. And it's a reminder, I think, to everybody about, you know, what role she's fulfilling as well.
Indeed. If you are just joining us, you're wondering what is going on this evening. Well, we just brought you the fantastic positive news that our King is going to return back to public duty. He is responding seemingly well enough to go back to work to his cancer treatment. I am bringing you into the conversation this evening. Kay says this is just the need that the country, just the news that the country needed. Welcome back, Your Majesty, she says. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I wonder, is this the fundamental distinction we need to make between Islam, which is a private religion people may practice freely amongst themselves, and Islamism, when you try and place those values upon other people, place that way of being, force it on people who don't want it?
Tom, I have been very much clear about this thing, that Islam is a religion and people are free to follow that religion in the UK, in a free Western society. So we have no problem with people following their religion as long as it is not being imposed onto the wider society. And when you talk about drawing a distinction between Islam and Islamism, people like me, you and me, we are drawing that distinction. We're trying to maintain that distinction. But if you look at the commentator from the Muslim community, some commentator, they would like to blur this line and they would ask you, what is Islamism? Where does it exist? Sorry, it does exist. We see it. And the teacher, this incident is an epitome of that kind of, ideology being prevalent, in our society.
Khadija, do you worry that these views are typical for some sections of society? Do you think that there's a problem with some Muslim men, that they have perhaps views that we don't consider to be British values?
There are certain readings of religion which are misogynistic, which are discriminatory, which are homophobic. We need to be honest about it. We need to be calling it out whenever we hear these kind of views. It's been a long time that we are letting these kind of ideologies crawling in, spreading tentacles in British society, and we are just ignoring it in the name of respecting people's culture and religion. You are not suppressed in the UK.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. And of course, we have big breaking news this evening. And guess what? It's actually positive news for once. It's nice, isn't it, to have something to feel good about. In case you've just tuned in, you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about. I'll cross to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, for the details.
Yeah, some very positive news from Buckingham Palace this evening, confirming that the King is going to be going back to public duties. The statement says, His Majesty the King will shortly return to public-facing duties after a period of treatment and recuperation following his recent cancer diagnosis. To help mark this milestone, the King and Queen will make a joint visit to a cancer treatment centre next Tuesday, where they will meet medical specialists and patients. This visit will be the first in a number of external engagements His Majesty will undertake in the weeks ahead. In addition, the King and Queen will host Their Majesties the Emperor and Empress of Japan for a state visit in June at the request of His Majesty's government. As the first anniversary of the coronation approaches, Their Majesties remain deeply grateful for the many kindnesses and good wishes they have received from around the world throughout the joys and challenges of the past year. The Prime Minister says some very good news to end the week. And of course, the King, huge asset to the government, his power of soft diplomacy and the fact he can host a state visit for a very important ally to the UK will be welcome news to the British government as well.
Yeah, indeed. Keep your thoughts coming in. Catherine says, Michelle, what good news indeed, and a fantastic relief. She says, God bless all of the royal family. We need much more of this good news. I'm really interested as well, if you or your family have been touched by cancer, how do you feel about this news? Does it give you some kind of positivity? Does it give you some hope for the future? Linda on Twitter actually says she thinks about me and my family. Because, yes, indeed, my partner was very recently diagnosed with quite an advanced grade of prostate cancer, as I've discussed on this programme before. So, yeah, it certainly touched my family. And I imagine it's perhaps touched many of yours too. I'm joined, actually, by the cancer specialist, Professor Carol Sikora. Good evening to you, Professor. We know that the King does still have cancer. I think it's safe to assume he must be responding well to his treatment because, of course, he is returning to these public duties. And I think at one stage in time, Professor, when you heard that word cancer, it was a stop you in your tracks. It still is actually a stop you in your tracks kind of word, which brings out huge emotions in people. But the kind of survival rates and the treatment methods these days are really advanced.
No, it really has. I mean, when I started as a consultant many years ago, only about a third of patients survived a cancer diagnosis. Now it's more than a half. And, you know, it's just tremendous news that the doctors are letting him go back to work. It's pretty stressful what he does. I mean, it may seem a doddle, but it's not. You can tell it's not a doddle. The organization, the logistics, the chances of something going wrong on these royal visits is high. So it is very stressful. So they're allowing him to go back, which means that the cancer must be under control. It must be now. He's had 3 months of treatment. We've been asked not to speculate where the cancer is. I mean, most oncologists would know where it is, but we're not going to speculate that. But he has had treatment. He's continuing on treatment. But the great news, as we've heard, is he's going back to work. And that can only mean it's under control.
Perhaps not being on this journey, what kind of toll does cancer treatment take on a person?
It takes a lot. First is the emotion. The worst thing about having cancer, and anyone who's listening that has cancer will recognize this, is the uncertainty. You're dealing with the uncertainty. What's going to happen next week? What's going to happen next month? Will the treatment work? Will the scan be positive or negative when I go back for follow-up? Will the blood test allow me to have treatment? These are all the questions day to day. You become obsessed with it. I mean, I've fortunately never had cancer, but I've seen a lot of people, obviously, that have. And that is living with uncertainty is the biggest problem. Sitting there on your own, moping, is not a good way to handle it. Counseling, psychotherapy, complementary therapies can help a bit. But at the end of the day, you've got to get over the uncertainty. And, you know, the fact that King Charles is going back to work is tremendous because it means he can now forget about the cancer can be put behind him and he can move forward and getting back to what he's good at. And I think that is just tremendous that that happens.
And do you think, actually, because we've had a discussion about the openness of the royal family, so of course not just here with the King, but also with the Princess of Wales as well, this whole openness around cancer and sharing stories, you know, that does, and we know, based on kind of some of the statistics that have been coming out, it has inspired people to come forward, hasn't it?
It's totally changed in my professional career. When we started, I remember we put at Hammersmith Hospital, where I was the director, we put Hammersmith Cancer Centre above the door. And some of my colleagues were horrified. They wrote me rather furious letters saying, you can't do that. You can't put cancer above the door of a cancer centre. Now, we're used to that. And it's moving forward. I mean, as cancer gets treated better and better as the years go by, it has less of a serious impact on people's psyche when they first hear that diagnosis. And of course, there are many more treatments on offer today than there were when I began as a consultant. So things have changed quite dramatically and will change continuously. Google's helped. People can find anything on Google. Some of it's rubbish. There are over 1 billion websites that have cancer in the name. Some of it is, half of them are probably rubbish, but a lot of them are very good indeed to find information. It's a level playing field between the doctor and the patient now in terms of information. It wasn't 30, 40 years ago.
And, you know, this is all, I mean, obviously I'm very pleased for the seemingly successful treatment that the King is receiving. But there'll be some people watching this that perhaps don't have the level of access to healthcare, let's be frank, that perhaps our King does. You know, how easy is it these days? Because, I mean, you will know the statistics as to how many people are touched by cancer, but how easy is it for people to actually get the access to the help that they need in a timely manner on the NHS?
Yeah, the biggest stumbling block is getting started. The quality of care, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery, is excellent. The quality of care in the NHS is fantastic. The reason our survival statistics are poor compared to the rest of, we're right down the bottom of Europe, is you just don't get diagnosed quickly. King Charles had his diagnosed, in a sense, by accident. He went in with one thing, the prostate, the enlarged prostate, which was publicly disclosed, but then he was found to have cancer. The type, as I say, wasn't disclosed. So that's rather different. But most of us, you have a symptom of cancer, you go to your GP, it takes a month to get a GP appointment sometimes, then you have to wait, you get a hospital appointment, then you wait for a scan, you wait for a biopsy. It can take up to 6 months, all the time the cancer is growing. It's that diagnostic delay that makes the NHS so poor. And it's just like going through an airport on a bank holiday. You've got multiple queues. Once you've got through one, you're stuck in the back of another. We've got IT systems that could stop that. You'll get me going tonight about it, but that's the current problem with cancer treatment in the NHS. It's not the quality of the doctors, the nurses, the technical staff. It's the speed and access and the management of the whole process.
Indeed. There you go. That's Professor Carol Sikora, the cancer specialist. Thank you very much for your insight. Janet, on Twitter or X, has said, Michelle, how come your guest has just said it wasn't prostate cancer? That's because it is. We've had it confirmed previously, not on this statement here, but the previous statement actually specifically said it was not prostate cancer, but they decided not to tell us the type of cancer that it was. And I've got to say, I connect there with what Carol Sikora was just saying, the professor, because when my partner had his operation, shall we say, for his prostate cancer, we were, of course, at the cancer hospital. I was struck by how large the word cancer, I mean, it was everywhere. It was just a huge cancer. The whole hospital was centred around cancer. And obviously, the professor was just saying that there is obviously a good thing. Cameron Walker, we've had reaction from the leader of the Labour Party.
Yeah, we have. Sir Keir Starmer has tweeted, delighted to see His Majesty looking so well and returning to public duties. On behalf of the Labour Party, I wish him and the Princess of Wales the best as they continue their recovery with the support of their families. Quite a lengthy statement there on Twitter from Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah, and of course, a couple of my viewers, I've just referenced it there, are getting in touch and saying, well, it's excellent for him. He's got access to the highest level of healthcare, and the NHS is something that people worry about massively, and it's all well and good telling people, we've raised awareness, go and get tested and checked, but you have to be able to access the treatment in a timely manner, and that's a huge concern for people in the NHS.
I think that's right. I mean, in fairness, though, reading the statement today, the palace has not gone into detail about what specific healthcare the King has been receiving. We don't know the details in and out of that. But I mean, the NHS, the famous quip about the NHS is sometimes it does take a long time to get through the initial process. But once a diagnosis is made, the NHS tends to do better at kicking into action, particularly with serious illnesses. But look, I mean, the NHS is the #2 issue in the country right now. We've got an election on the horizon, which, if you speak to people in Westminster today, as I was, they're saying the election's coming in June, right? So let's see. But NHS is #2. There's a big issue about how we're going to reform the NHS, how we're going to cut down those waiting lists. Got Labour talking about it, West Streeting talking about it, the Conservatives worrying about it. So, of course, it's an issue, it's a challenge, it's a worry for everybody out there who's dealing with a serious illness.
It is, Jadita, because access to healthcare, as we've just been touching on there, cancer does not discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're a king or pauper, it doesn't matter. And it is, as Matt's saying, one of the top worries among people in society. Can I access the NHS when I need it? And the waiting list at the moment concern people.
Yeah, I think this journey for King Charles is great as a proof of concept because, as Dr. Sikora said, it's not about quality of care, it's about diagnostic delays. And by showing that, they've even said it in the Buckingham Palace statements that he's so thankful to the medical team because it was in the treatment of one condition, they discovered another and acted quickly. So it's showing that if you get people to a diagnosis quicker, the NHS can provide the care they need to get treatment. So by showing that a man in his 70s can battle something like this and get back to work full time, administrative errors are preventing the system from doing what it is capable of doing. So that gives more impetus to the arguments going forward when you have King Charles as your proof of concept that fix the administration issues and the system will work better.
Indeed. Rob says, I need to just chip in and say I am delighted for King Charles and I wish him all the very best with his ongoing treatment. He says, God save the King. I mean, this is just coming through. Just Jenny says, best of luck to our King. King Charles, may his health only continue to improve. So many people really feeling very pleased about this news. Josh says, Michelle, this fantastic news will give people hope. He says it's absolutely amazing how our mood is affected by what happens with the royals. You raise an interesting point there. One of my panel, Matt Goodwin, he's actually done some polling into reactions to the royals. Well, how handy to have him alongside me tonight. We'll look at this in a little bit more detail, the point you just made there, Josh, when we come back in 2.
Hello again, good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another cold night tonight and rain will spread into the south and east through this weekend with the best of the dry weather around the north and west once again, much as it has been throughout this week. But to the south we've got low pressure arriving and some weather fronts through this evening. So for some heavy rain for many southern counties of England through this evening as well as southern areas of Wales by tomorrow morning. There's going to be a lot of cloud around. So it will be a milder night across the south. However, in the north, with cloud clearing and it turning much drier, it's going to be another cold start on Saturday morning. We could be down as low as -4 or 5. So expect frost rurally for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. But there will be, as today, lots of sunshine around, particularly across the north and west. The best of the sunshine will be through the morning. Cloud will bubble up into the afternoon. But across central areas, parts of Wales and into the Midlands, it's going to be quite a cloudy and cold feeling day. And into the southeast, we'll start to see some showery outbreaks of rain. But in any sunshine, it will start to feel that much milder with highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Now on Sunday, as I said, it is turning much wetter. This swathe of rain moves up to the north and east of the UK, bringing outbreaks of rain across many eastern areas, but particularly across the southeast throughout the morning. That area of rain will push away to the east for Sunday evening and into Monday. Then we pick up a southerly wind, which is going to pick up our temperatures closer to 19 degrees for Tuesday.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King in Bedfordshire. The southbound M1, there are delays at the moment after an earlier accident between junction 12 at Flitwick and 11A at Dunstable. In Essex, the northbound M11 looking busy after an earlier vehicle fires northbound just before junction 6 at the M25. In Warwickshire, the northbound M42, all traffic being held at the moment. Long delays after an accident between junction 3A at the M40 and junction 4 at Shirley. In Staffordshire, the southbound M6 looking busy following an earlier breakdown between junction 10A at the M54 and junction 10 at Wolverhampton. And in Derbyshire, the northbound M1, there's a lane closed and delays follows an accident between Tibshelf Services and junction 29 at Chesterfield. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight, on the night where we've got some big breaking news about our King, Cameron Walker.
Yeah, some very positive news, actually, from Buckingham Palace, saying that the King is going to be returning to public duties after the positive effect of his cancer treatment. We've had a lengthy statement from Buckingham Palace. We've also had a photograph to accompany it of the King and the Queen taken in the Buckingham Palace garden a couple of weeks ago, marking almost the 1-year anniversary since the coronation. Buckingham Palace have also confirmed the King will be visiting a cancer specialist ward next week with the Queen, an official visit, and will be hosting the Emperor and Empress of Japan for a state visit in June. So lots to look forward to for the King in the summer.
Indeed, that's great news. Just the positive news that many of us in our country were wanting, because it is often very doom and gloom, isn't it? Before the break, Josh, one of my viewers, says it's quite surprising how ordinary members of the public are affected by what's happening with the royals. You've done some polling on reactions and attitudes to the royals, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, look, the royal family is still very popular out there in the country. Don't believe everything you read in the newspapers. Lots of people very supportive of King Charles. I think, if anything, their brand has got stronger over the last couple of years, particularly if we contrast the King and the Princess of Wales with, let's say, other members of the royal family who might not be located in the UK. Let me be diplomatic about that and let our viewers guess who I'm talking about. But look, there is a generational challenge here for the royal family too, though, which is that, you know, we can see in the polling 18 to 24s are consistently the least likely to say they feel that the royal family is value for money, that they feel positive about the royal family. So there is a very sharp generational divide there. And I actually think, you know, moments like this that sort of, dare I say, bring the royal family, you know, down to sort of the level of ordinary people and what we're going through, and illnesses and sickness and all the things, the trials and tribulations that families go through. I suspect actually that will resonate a bit with younger people. You know, might be looking at grandparents going through similar things. But there is a big divide in the polling, that's for sure.
Well, Mark, he's been in touch, one of my viewers, and says, "You're a harsh man, Mark. You say the royals need to go now that we've lost our queen. They offer no value." So as you're just mentioning there, I think opinions certainly are divided, but I certainly love the royals. Jadita, where are you on it?
See, I've got the benefit of from my work and life, living and working abroad a lot, seeing the perspective people have of the royal family from the outside looking in, and I can see both sides. To younger people, they always want something to be brutally objective and tangible and practical. What value do they hold? They have a ceremonial value, but not a practical one, and an unjustifiable expense. You cannot argue with that. But at the same time, what they don't see is the bigger picture, because the royal family the monarchy in Britain has a long history of being tied to monarchies around the world. Everyone from Qatar to Jordan to Africa to the Far East, they've all had a hand over the centuries in formulating what they still enjoy to this day. So the world looks to the British royal family as a certain kind of architecture of governance that's very prestigious, but also diplomatically important. So having this situation where King Charles is hosting the Japanese royals, it's a very important thing because they sustain and they maintain. Should you topple something like the monarchy, what you will show to all of those other monarchies in very influential places like the Middle East is that you don't hold a value for that kind of governance, and therefore you're a threat to them. So they're not so ceremonial. They have a strong political and diplomatic value. And King Charles understands that. That's why he's doing what he's doing now.
Well, just want to come back briefly, though, on the cost of the royal family. I mean, I was in Westminster today and sort of wandering around near Buckingham Palace. You can't move because the tourists are coming in to look at the palace and so on. I mean, look, don't forget, the monarchy bring an enormous number of people into the country every year. People want to engage with this institution. I'm not convinced, really, that the royal family is a net fiscal cost. I think, actually, on balance, they bring an enormous amount of soft power into Britain.
Well, I can tell you now, they are very, very loved among almost all of you that are getting in touch with me tonight. But Paul says, "Michelle, I confess I am a Republican." He said, "But despite that, I absolutely wish the King and, of course, the Princess a full recovery from cancer." I'm joined now by the royal correspondent, Rafe Hadel-Manku. Good evening to you. We've just been talking about the different perspectives, Rafe, on the royal family, but there's no question that this positive news does unite a great many people around the King.
That's right. I mean, we have to realise that monarchy is actually the most human form of government there is, and people do become directly invested in it in a way that you don't see in republics, for example. If you go to America, the Constitution is under glass in the Library of Congress in Washington. Here we have the living embodiment of the Constitution in the person of the sovereign, the King and the Queen, and we see through things like the state opening of Parliament and so forth, the living enactment of our Constitution. And the King ties us back to 1,000 years of monarchy in a way you don't get in republics. We are the world's oldest, continuous, unbroken democratic country, and that's in large part because of the stability that the monarchy has brought to us. And indeed, if you look at the UN's list of the top 10 countries in which to live for its Human Development Index, the majority of those are monarchies, actually. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Japan, Holland, Belgium, Canada, the UK. So monarchies aren't anachronistic. These are the world's most progressive, most advanced countries. But it's because of the monarchy that we've actually been able to create these societies, because they help in part to create stable societies and stable institutions. And so we should be very wary about trying to eradicate that. But thankfully, we've got 30 years of polling from Ipsos Mori on the monarchy. Every year they ask the British public the very same question: would you prefer to be a monarchy or a republic? And it's been their single most stable question in history, with 2/3 of the British public favouring the monarchy. And so hopefully we can address the very real issue about the youth of today, because we do have a serious challenge with youth and also mass migration, because people are arriving here with no personal connection to the crown. As long as we can deal with those two issues, the monarchy will be here for a long, long time.
Fascinating insight. That's Rafe Hale-Mancouf. Thank you for that. Andy says, Michelle, can you give an update on the Princess of Wales? Unfortunately, Andy, no, I cannot. But of course, we do continue to send her well. I'm delighted to hear such good news, says Mary. She says, I do hope he's not pushing himself, though, because she wants His Majesty to put health before duty. Many of you getting in touch saying, what fantastic news, Michelle. It has uplifted you tonight. I am delighted to hear that. After the break, Dewberry Tavern opens. Let's raise a glass to the King. See you in 2.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Children's stories like Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland now come with a trigger warning at universities, alerting readers to possible themes of white supremacy.
Yes, these warnings are being applied to colonial narratives, that's the claim, commonly found in adventure stories and famous novels from the Victorian era. Well, joining us now is the actor Charlie Lawson. And Charlie, these warnings have been applied to Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. What's this university getting at?
Well, look, first of all, this is nothing new. We hadn't heard about it for a while. Universities have been doing this over the last couple of years. I remember having a chat with one of your colleagues. But when Gabriella, the lovely Gabby, phoned me up today, I had to beg her to put me on after 9 o'clock, because I found myself getting rather irate about the whole thing. But I will do my best to be very polite.
Yes, keep it clean.
Yes, look, which is quite difficult for me, as you'll appreciate, over this subject. Look, this is universities just jumping on the same trying to be relevant bandwagon. Is it any wonder that we look at the quality of graduates from university, and in my humble opinion, some of them are slightly disappointing. But I did phone a couple of people I knew who had sons and daughters at various leading universities, and they had been speaking this morning. And thank the Lord, they think it's a complete load of bloody nonsense, as I do. Give the C.S. Lewis Centre a ring in East Belfast, because that's where your man came from. And I think you'll find you'll get short shrift, because we're not all about that in East Belfast. We don't censor anything.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The
People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday, the 2nd of May,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday, the 2nd of May at midnight on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back. I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Regular viewers will know that Dewberry Tavern opens round about this time on a Friday night. It's open for business as I speak, and tonight we've got some good news to celebrate. I shall raise a glass in a second, but before I do, Cameron Walker, tell us why.
We do. Very good news from Buckingham Palace this evening. The King will shortly return to public-facing duties after a period of treatment and recuperation following his recent cancer diagnosis. Not a full return to public duties, but a very, very positive step in his cancer journey. He will be returning to public-facing duties. A bit of a question mark as to which public duties he will go to, trooping the colour, for example, the D-Day celebrations. But what we do know is he'll be out and about next week with Queen Camilla at a cancer centre, and he's also going to be hosting the state visit of the Emperor of Japan and Empress of Japan as well in June. So lots to look forward to.
Well, there you go. I think this is a good moment to unite, because I can tell you now there's one message that's been coming through thick and fast, and that is one of people feeling uplifted, happy tonight, and actually feeling grateful for the positive news and the message that's coming through. And I'll share it, of course. Long live the King, and God save the King. So cheers, everyone, to that. Cheers. To my panel. I shall reintroduce anyone that's just joining. Judita De Silva and Matt Goodwin alongside me, as is, of course, our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. So cheers to our King and his good health. Now, I can tell you, lots of people have been getting in touch. Leslie, you've stopped me in my tracks a little bit, actually, one of my viewers, with what you said. You said, can I just spare a second to talk about Camilla? You're saying that you think Camilla has been amazing. And you said your husband was very sadly diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And you said when you found out, you cried lots. And you said, I now feel quite ashamed of myself. I saw that and it stopped me, because I hope that you don't feel ashamed of yourself, Leslie, because the word cancer can be absolutely terrifying, as we've just been speaking about. It can stop you in your tracks, but fortunately as well, it is something now that we do have fantastic treatments for. There's no right or wrong way to respond to that shock, and of course we all react differently. I can cross live now to the royal commentator, Jenny Bond. Good evening to you. Your reaction, Jenny, to tonight's news?
Well, it's lovely to have something to smile about on television, isn't it? And I think it's really important that the palace has been so upfront about this, so transparent and honest, because there are so many conspiracy theories still going around on social media. I was woken up this morning, actually, by Australian television stations wanting to talk to me because they were alarmed at reports that the King's funeral plans were being updated urgently. I mean, this was nonsense. It was unverified, it was unsourced, but this is the kind of rumour mill that swirls around. And so I think it's vital that we are kept in touch as much as possible and as much as the King permits with his state of health. And at the moment, we know it's pretty damn good. It's all going in the right direction. So it's hugely encouraging.
It certainly is. Thank you for those words of celebration too. Lots of you, again, just celebrating, feeling happy, feeling pleased today about this positive news. Roy says, what wonderful news about the King. I love my royal family and my country. We fly our flag with pride. God save the King, he says. Michael says, I'm the same age as the King, and I've had bladder cancer 10 years ago, and I'm still going strong. He says, I hope and pray that the King has the same recovery that I'm having. God save the King, he says. That's fantastic news, Michael, on your recovery, and I hope that continues. Luke says, great news for the King and, of course, all of his family. Hopefully this will give hope to anyone else who is suffering. Ian says, my heart dropped when I heard that there was a statement from the palace, but it's such good news for the country. He goes on to say that he's lost a few members of his family to cancer. I'm sorry to hear that, Ian, but he ends with saying he's pleased that the King is able to step forward. The country needs this. And he echoes, God save the King. And it is such a nice sentiment that's coming through, Matt. We started the programme by saying that actually it was positive news that this country needs. And it really is. That's been echoed throughout this last hour.
I think it's a very unifying moment, actually, and people have famously described the royal family as being about continuity and having that sacred link with the nation, and I think this is a story that will contribute to that.
Indeed. Excuse me. As I just said, lots and lots. It keeps going. And I mean, Cameron, there's a lot of love for our king tonight.
Yeah, there certainly is, and I don't know if we can bring that picture back up that we've got this evening of the King and Queen Camilla, because Camilla has really held the monarchy strong, since his cancer diagnosis, so it's great to see a picture like that.
It is fantastic news. If you are watching this, King Charles, all of us at GB News wish you all the very best. But for now, that's all I've got time for. Thank you to everyone. To you at home, have a fantastic weekend. See you Monday.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another cold night tonight, and rain will spread into the south and east through this weekend, with the best of the dry weather around the north and west once again, much as it has been throughout this week. But to the south we've got low pressure arriving and some weather fronts through this evening. So for some heavy rain for many southern counties of England through this evening, as well as southern areas of Wales by tomorrow morning. There's going to be a lot of cloud around, so it will be a milder night across the south. However, in the north, with cloud clearing and it turning much drier, it's going to be another cold start on Saturday morning. We could be down as low as -4 or 5, so expect frost rurally for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. But there will be, as today, lots of sunshine around, particularly across the north and west. The best of the sunshine will be through the morning. Cloud will bubble up into the afternoon. But across central areas, parts of Wales and into the Midlands, it's going to be quite a cloudy and cold feeling day. And into the southeast, we'll start to see some showery outbreaks of rain, but in any sunshine, it will start to feel that much milder, with highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Now on Sunday, as I said, it is turning much wetter. This swathe of rain moves up to the north and east of the UK, bringing outbreaks of rain across many eastern areas, but particularly across the southeast throughout the morning. That area of rain will push away to the east for Sunday evening and into Monday. Then we pick up a southerly wind, which is going to pick up our temperatures closer to 19 degrees for Tuesday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. In Surrey, the clockwise M25, there's a lane close and delays after an accident around junction 13 at Staines. In Hertfordshire, the anti-clockwise M25, there's a lane close and delays following a breakdown between junction 25 at Enfield and 24 at Potters Bar. In Essex, northbound M11, there's looking busy. There's still a lane close following a breakdown between junction 5 and junction 6 at the M25. In Warwickshire, the northbound M42, looking very busy following an earlier accident between junction 3A at the M40 and junction 4 at Shirley, but delays though going back towards junction 3 at Redditch. And in Derbyshire, the northbound M1 looking busy follows an earlier accident involving a couple of vehicles between Tibbshead Services and junction 29 at Chesterfield. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight on the show, I've got Andrew Jimpson. Also got Matthew Larser, he's back on the show for about the 10th time. Got Charlie Mullins, the Pimlico plumber, he's on the show.